We'll be right. We're just going to, we're
It's
live
all
already.
good. I don't
Shall
know
we
if
get
this
on
gets
topic?
if yeah, this is not on topic, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're live again, and it's our first regular call again since we had our little breakup.
Oh, yes, the beginning of the year has been a little bit broken up, hasn't it? It's been a bit ridiculous, but no, good to have a good rhythm back in. I'm certainly locked in for every fortnight. So yes, good to be back every fortnight.
And I kind of feel like I'm getting into a bit of a rhythm now too. Um, but my life has been a little bit upside down over the past little while. And that's why when you wrote me 2 days ago or whatever it was, what's our topic going to be? Blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I need to go for a drive and we'll see how this goes. So on my way to work that day, or no, maybe it was the night before that. I think it was the night before that. I came to the idea that okay, making peace with what is, or
Mm.
being at peace with what is, because it's
Mm.
felt very kind of unsettled here for myself. I mean, I took the new job. And for those who are listening, I kind of want you to grab onto whatever unsettled issue that you have in your life, that maybe you can relate to it better if you can hold on to the angst and anxiety of the thing that is occupying your time and energy. Um, that way, I think we can all learn a bit from this, learn from each other about this. So, anyways, I've started this new job. I don't feel like I have my feet firmly planted on the ground on anything yet. Everything's new. Every time I ask a question, that question leads to 10 questions. Or I start to, I'm going to take some initiative. I'll do that form or whatever. And then I find out after spending a day trying to figuring out all the financials and what needs to go on this form. Oh, it's not your job to do that. You send that to this person. So it just feels like every time I do something, I'm making it really hard on myself. Anyway, so I don't
Oh,
feel super
that's
productive.
interesting.
I don't feel productive. I don't feel like settled yet. Um, so that's my job stuff. And then over the past couple of weeks, Julie has been dealing with, and because we're together all the time, I have to deal with this too. Her union is on strike,
Oh, okay.
or
So
her
does that
gov.
mean she automatically has to be on strike?
It's not autumn. It's kind of forced, but I mean, you are.
Encouraged?
Yeah, encouraged isn't the right word, but yes. Okay, so basically, if you don't do it, we will kind of blacklist you, and we will uh, try to claw back money from you that you don't deserve because you didn't strike with us. And anyways, it's kind of a big mess. Anyways, they've been
Yeah.
on strike for almost 2 weeks. Julie was super conflicted about it at the beginning. I'm conflicted about it too, but for different reasons. I think financially it's been a big deal. I got a job, so that kind of alleviated things, and then all of a sudden we're already back in this uh oh another thing. We finally get Ian some work, but now we're I'm not working.
And another disruption.
Right. And for me, this is a big pet peeve because everything that is being spoken right now tends to be generalization or an assessment or very vague. Like nobody's giving real information. It's all they're out to get us. And like if you listen to the government and then you listen to the bargaining agents on the union side, they have these very specific talking points that they use, but they don't go into any depth. They don't go into any specifics. And for me, that drives me bananas because as somebody who wants to take control of his life, I would want that information to make the best decision for me, myself, and my family, right? As would my wife. But when you speak in generalities, you don't feel like you have any control. And in this particular case, we've basically given our control to this union to bargain for us. So, and if you don't do what they say, then you've gone against them, and then you've got to deal with repercussions from your colleagues, from the union, and whatnot. And then if you go to work, then you get paid. So, which is what we all kind of want.
Would
Anyways,
actually like. Yep.
yeah, I kind of like that paycheck thing. So I noticed myself getting really wrapped up in listening to the news on it. And it's nothing new every day. It's the same thing. And just getting really frustrated and finding myself super judgmental with regards to either side. And in all cases, it's just making me feel worse. It's me expending a bunch of extra energy. And then Julie will come to me and it should be like, I don't know what to do. And then I try to coach her through it to help her find her alignment with what she wants to do. Because I want her to make her decisions for herself too. And I don't want to force my ideals on her, which I would be doing something completely different. And that's okay. I don't have to live with that decision because it's not mine, it's hers, right? That's her stuff.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
So when I got up yesterday morning and I was driving to work, I'm like, okay, something's got to change. I need to stop being involved in the things that I really have no control over what they do at that level, but I do have control over how I show up to this. How do I participate in it? And that goes for my work as well, where I kind of feel like I'm kind of flopping around like a fish out of water. So on my drive, I'm like, you know what? I need to make peace with where I'm at. I don't have control over those things. That's okay. What do I have control over this morning? First thing I did, I turned the radio off. So I just drove for an hour, give or take, without the radio, just enjoying the scenery. I picked the slowest scenic route possible that avoids all the traffic and the commotion. And I just was like at ease on my way in. And it felt so much better. And when I got to the office, I picked 2 or 3 tasks that I knew I could do that they may not have been the most important thing, but it was a step. I sent an email to this company, I sent an email to this assistant, and I got a couple things off my plate. And it got me out of the worry about all these answers to questions that I don't have. And then I'm like, this is the project I want to focus on today. And I got to kind of play in floor plans and spreadsheets. It's kind of in this work, that will be my happy place. And I started enjoying myself. And I noticed that I wasn't focused on those other things the same way. When I did take a couple minutes for lunch and I popped on the internet thing, I like to see if a new update had happened. I kind of watched stuff without judgment, just kind of, okay, that's their stance still, that's their stance still. Although I did pick up a couple of things in the way that they spoke that was different for me. And like, maybe there is progress. They are speaking differently. They're not saying much different, but I picked up on a couple of things. Gives me a little bit of hope. But I don't think I could have seen it if I didn't switch what I do and don't have control over.
Yeah, because because you brought yourself out of the mud of getting caught up in everything's hard.
Everything's hard and I don't have an answer and blah, blah, blah. And throughout the day, I had little kind of glimpses of new interactions that were more fun, a little easier. And just before I left, I got an email that replied to my email first thing in the morning that answered a whole crap load of questions. So I was like, if I trust that the answers will come at the right time, and if I can disassociate myself from all the stuff that I cannot control, I'll get the information, the idea, and I'll feel better throughout because I've made peace with what I cannot change.
Yeah, it's surrendering to what you cannot change. Like well, you can't do anything about it. The conversation for your wife, the conversation between the union and the government is just going to go on. Like what can you do about it? But that letting go of control is really cool. The other thing I want to contribute to this is that we often get caught up in the thing that's happening right now instead of where that thing is, like what potentially it will lead us to. So we get caught up in them in the right now instead of what it is a catalyst to create. And if we can focus on a little bit about what is it actually able to create due to that circumstance, that also can help us move. But I think that comes after the control. I think letting go of the control and feeling like you have to control everything that's uncontrollable and just bringing it back to what you can choose. I think that's one of the things that I found recently. So the last couple of weeks, I've been cleaning out my programs in my business, and they're getting a refresh. They look a bit different. I'm behaving a little differently in them, and the price is behaving a little differently. And so there was a little bit of a small amount of apprehension from me going, how's that going to be received? But ultimately I can't control what an individual, and as I was like going, okay, so I've set everything up, I know why I'm changing all of this, I can explain it to every individual client about why these price changes are happening and why the structure of the programs are happening. And my husband said to me, you know what? All the people that you think are going to have a bad reaction are probably not going to even blink an eyelid. Like, they're just going to go, yeah, whatever, Chris. And he said, it's the ones that you think will accept it that are going to go, oh, I don't know. And it really highlighted to me that I decided who was most likely going to have
the allergic reaction and who would accept it.
And I was like, I can't control that either. Like, I can't control how they're going to react to me changing this up. But if I looked a little further beyond their reaction, and I've had a few reactions, and if I look a little bit beyond that, it's like, wow, there's a space opening up that by allowing these people to have a reaction and possibly move on from working with me because my price went up a bit, then someone else needs to be able to have that space to come in. And so that then led to some excitement rather than sticking with the reaction of, oh no, this is going to disrupt me. I'm going to have people that I've worked with for years and years going to drop off the list, and I'm never going to be able to work with them again because I made this one decision. And it got me out of that reaction and moved me on to the excitement of what potentially it would open up.
Yeah, sometimes it just takes a shift of perspective as to what it could open up, and lining up with that energy specifically.
And I do wonder, though, when we're looking at the topic of being at peace with what is, that allows some peace for the now. And then I actually take it a step further, and then I let go of the excitement of what else that's going to bring. Because if I stick with the excitement, oh, that's going to bring in 5 new clients, then I'll get really disappointed when only 2 show up. Even if they're the most ideal, amazing, bestest ever, because I'll have stuck with this 5 in my head, even into the future. And it just like this surrendering to what is brings the peace.
Right, because when you made the choice that, oh, that gives me an opportunity for 5 new clients, and then you attach the outcome to the success, right? So if you can be okay with the 5 dropping out and opening up the potential for 5 new ones, but surrendering to what shows up as being okay.
And so if we apply that back to, I want to go back to your work scenario first and apply it to this. So if we take that same theory and put it back to you asking one question, and then it opens up another 10 questions that then So what if you applied the surrender to the not knowing the answer to the question?
Well, in that particular circumstance, I kind of felt like I didn't have enough knowledge to know even what direction to go. It's like throwing somebody in the middle of a forest and you don't have a compass, you don't have any whatever, and you're like, take 5 steps this way, and that doesn't feel right. I'm gonna take 5 steps that way. Like I was totally lost. But when I made the decision that morning to basically surrender to this, I'm like, okay, you need a baseline. What don't you know, or what do you know, so
What
that
do
you
you
can list
know?
off all the things that you don't know. At least there's a starting point. And I put most of those questions into that email to that person that I didn't know yet. But it it gave me at least a foundational place of, okay, here's my ground zero. These are the things I need to know that I don't
Mm.
know. Who can help me with these? And I ended up getting a great
And I
portion of
think
the answers
another,
back.
that process of whether you, well, ultimately you wrote them down because you wrote it down as an email to someone. By writing what we do know and what we don't know, or what we have control of or what we don't have control of, doing both of those, it actually makes us be able to observe it, because as soon as we get it down on paper, we write it down, we can look at it. So we're removed from it. Where when we still are running it around in our head on the rat wheel, it's really difficult to see it.
Mhm.
We can't observe it as well. We might feel it, we might sense it, we might go back to your analogy about standing in the forest. You kind of go 5 steps this way and, oh, it doesn't feel right. But until we go, actually, if those 5 steps now leading back to, oh, look, there's footprints that I just walked those footprints, I'm just walking them backwards, then you go, oh, I must be going in the right way because I can now follow that.
Mhm.
And we can start to be observant. So being able to observe ourselves, it suddenly removes us from the emotion, which is all that we're getting caught up with
Yeah.
when we feel the disturbances and the out of control
Well,
circumstances.
and I think that's highlighted because I think of myself as a semi-intelligent person, right? Where I feel like competent, I have information, people come to me, I give them answers, like I'm used to that. So being the person who's going everywhere else for those answers feels very foreign. Now, and what I'm kind of reflecting back on now is I might have had more information than I thought I had, more answers than I thought I had, but I didn't know it yet. It's almost like you're pulling pieces of the puzzle up on the table, but they don't have enough connectivity with other pieces yet, so you don't know what the picture is. It's just a piece. And until you start seeing a bunch of yellows that you can start to work with, and you can start putting pieces together. But otherwise, it's just random
Pieces
piece.
that, yep. Basically, if we're using the jigsaw analogy, they're just turned over, so you don't even know what color they are yet.
They were just upside down.
Yeah, because, and that often and emotions do that to us. Emotions will turn things upside down,
Mhm.
and so that we can't see, that we can't get the clarity of what it is we're looking at. And so if we can just simply become observant of what we're feeling, then we can start to turn that piece over.
What I was trying to get Julie to look at, because she basically in her mind I've got 3 choices. I can cross the picket line, I can go picket, or I can, as she says, be Switzerland and do nothing.
Yep, they'd
Like
be the
not
3
participate,
options.
not participate. And what I was trying to get her to see, and maybe I did a poor job of trying to explain this, but basically trying to get her to make a decision and then to line up with that, regardless of what the decision is. Whether she decides to do this, that, or the other thing, is if you can be at peace with whichever decision you made for that day, be okay with it. Let the rest of it go. You can make a new decision tomorrow as to what you want to do. You don't have to stay Switzerland. You don't have to stay the crosser. You don't have to stay the picketer.
Going and pick it. Yep.
You can do what feels best for you. Unfortunately, because of the emotion that she was dealing with, it made all of the decisions hard. They all seemed like they didn't feel good because there's a lot of fear and judgment and worry that's all wound up into each of those decisions. So none of them feel good, even though maybe that's what she wants to line up with. None of them feel good.
Well, that's the same with if I change a price and I go to talk to someone, then I have pre-decided that they're going to have an allergic reaction to it. It doesn't feel good to have that conversation. It's like, oh, when do I have the conversation and how do I phrase this and what words do I say and how can I let them down gently? Am I letting them down or am I exciting them? Like, oh my God, get out of the way, Chris. Go.
Get out of the story.
And that's the thing, because we get caught up in the emotion and the judgments, whether they're our own self-judgment about, well, if I do this, I'll be seen as this, or we're judging what, well, all judgments that have come from us actually is about us, our own self-judgment of how we're going to be seen and what that's going to mean. But
fear of what?
Yeah.
So what's going through your mind when you're like, okay, marketing coach said prices got to go up. This is what they got to be. When you're going into that conversation with the person you decided will have the allergic reaction, what's going on inside of you from a fear perspective?
From a fear perspective is justification.
If I can just prove that it's really worth it, they'll be okay.
Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But that's what's going on.
You're talking to a fellow entrepreneur. Trust me, I know the conversation that goes on in your head. I've got 6 of them going on at the same time.
And depending, so the way that I have found, I've done about 5 of these conversations. I've probably got maybe another 10 to go.
You must be getting good at them.
Well, I don't know if the goodness of the conversation's getting any better. But what's happening is the confidence in myself about
that's more what I'm
trusting
getting at.
that I can say the right thing for that person, which means I have to do a lot less talking and a lot more listening. So I am actually having to listen to what their response is. Now, some of these I've only been able to do over the phone. And so that's a little bit harder because if I'm on Zoom or I'm in person, I can see their body language. I can see them take that breath in to go, oh, what are you doing to me? Or, oh, yeah. Like I could see the subtleties of their immediate reaction. But when I'm on the phone, I have to pay much more diligent attention to the immediate response, and then also recognize that the immediate response is not necessarily the ultimate response. So I had someone have a reaction that went, oh, that's a bit of a stretch. I'm like, well, okay. That's okay. Yeah, great. And now they're on board. Like, you cannot equate the immediate reaction to what they ultimately decide. And then someone else came and went, let me just think about that. It's like, well, there's not much to think about, but sure. But people just want an ability to process new information. And that's all it is. So that's all I'm presenting. Yet my own self thing is all the justification. but I just overload people if I do justification.
Yeah,
I
it might
just
not
need to
be,
give
it
them the
might not
new
be
information.
information that they need.
Correct.
That's why you need to be listening to what they're saying and not saying.
Yes. So I'm getting better at that. The first conversation I had, I kind of went, oh God, Chris, you got that bit wrong, didn't you? I got away with it, but it was like, oh yeah, no, don't do that. Stop doing fast talking constantly.
I can relate. I've definitely been there, especially when you're not super confident with it yet. Like you, as much as you want to be on board with it, you're not on board with it. So your justification is your way of kind of building it up, and it's sometimes hard to take that leap. But if you take out all the emotion and the judgment and the fear out of it, strip it right down to this is the new price. This is why it's the new price. Do you have any questions? And how can I help continue to serve you or help you finish or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I've found that the latest conversation I had was less justifying and more, here, this is how it used to look, and this is how it's going to look moving forward. This has these features, including the price, and this has these features, including the price. There you go. What works well for you? And that was the one that said, let me think about it. And I was like, that's really good, because I can't control what that is, and I don't need to. I'm literally presenting the two. And because there's a circumstance on one of these programs that people have already signed up to a certain number. And so I'm not changing that I'm not changing the original agreement. I'm just letting them know that there's a new one. If they wanted to, they could hop onto it.
Yeah.
But they don't have to. And again, by me removing the justification and literally just presenting it, it lets me, I've removed my emotion and I've removed my reaction to their response. Because, and I know from past that ultimately it becomes the gift, because they were going to probably move on anyway. But what the gift is that I got to see it play out and almost have a closure. And I think when we let go of that control, we get to see so many more benefits. We're much more at peace. We get closure around things. We get to live in the moments. We get to appreciate the smaller things in life. What a cool opportunity for you. And I know you and Julie have lots of conversations anyway, but it would have actually enhanced the communication between you guys just due to this circumstance that Julie's in, because it's going to be, bringing more conversations.
And the last one that we had was what she needed to hear. It just took a few to come out for that to come out. And ultimately it revolves around money. And I said, I'm 100% behind you. It's not the end of the world. It can't go on that much longer. But look, I'm taking in a salary now. We just got a tax return. The government, I'm pretty sure, just overpaid me by accident for the work that I have done. So we've been given the buffers that we need if this was to drag a little bit, but it's going to be fine. We don't need to worry about it.
And so there's the gift of this.
And I'm on board with whatever you decide. Don't worry about it.
And that would have been said genuinely because you both had so many conversations leading up to that moment. So you also got to hear what you needed to hear, even though you'd stepped into a bit of the coach role. But it lets you, so there's that gift of suddenly another, one of life's ups and downs that you guys have navigated. And, long-term relationships need to know how they manage that. And the more, that you've got of those together experiences, the longer it goes on. So there's so many gifts in disruptions. I mean, I struggle with disruptions. They're not comfortable. I do like my rhythm. I do like my patterning. That's why, like you, I'm very excited that we're now locked into Fortnite, and that's definitely in my calendar. I had a reminder the other day to just make sure that everything that the fortnightly is completely in on my calendar to the end of this year, and it is, because it gives me comfort, right? I'm put my hand up completely. I'm not a fan of constant changes. It doesn't thrill me. However, we all have to learn how to navigate it.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for the bumps in the road, we wouldn't have a story to tell, and we wouldn't learn anything new. So,
Correct.
and we wouldn't be able to pass that information on to those wonderful little lumps of flesh that we birth. So
there we go. Finding peace with being at peace with what is. I think it's a constant work in progress for me. That would be my final, thing.
oh my God, of course. I was a mess for several days before I finally bought into my own and sometimes it's just like a phrase or something you hear, and you're like, I gotta go back to that. I've got to just be okay with it. I don't want to go into it, but I mean, there's one guy that I listen to from time to time, and he often talks about the matrix, which is essentially just buying into ego and fear and doubt and judgment. And when I thought of the word the matrix while I was driving to work that day, and I was like, yeah, I've just bought into this judgment stuff a bit too much lately. I gotta let it go.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed to hear to start the momentum in the way that felt way better.
Yeah. Yep. And hopefully anyone who's having a listen in on this particular conversation, maybe there's something that you or I have said that lets them, allows them to give that opening to making that shift, to step back and control what they can.
Yeah. And if they're close to us here, they might actually be those who are on the picket lines or in this fray here as well. So, I mean, there's 100,000+ of them. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
There's a lot of energy.
A lot of people affected.
A lot of energy.